With the race for the White House kicking into high gear after Super Tuesday, this morning President Biden is preparing to deliver perhaps the most significant address of his presidency.
The president will outline an agenda that is about continuing to build on the progress that we've made over the last 3 years.
The president expected to hammer several themes in this State of the Union address: an improving economy, reproductive rights, and preserving democracy. And despite trailing Mr. Trump in recent polls on securing the border, President Biden is expected to highlight his immigration policies after House Republicans tanked a bipartisan border security bill. Still, he faces a slew of challenges as election season ramps up. Persistent voter concerns about his age, his handling of the Israel-Hamas war, with some Democrats voicing their disapproval by voting uncommitted in recent primaries, and high food prices due to inflation.
Attack my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal.
Last year, some Republican members of Congress interrupted his address. This year, the White House says
he's ready for anything, as you saw him literally do that last year.
The speech coming as the general election rematch takes shape. After Donald Trump won almost every Super Tuesday state, his rival Nikki Haley suspended her campaign.
It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that.
The former president securing the endorsement of Mitch McConnell, who had sharply criticized him over his conduct on January 6th. Recent polls show Mr. Trump leading President Biden within the margin of error. And after skipping GOP primary debates, Mr. Trump is now calling on President Biden to debate him anytime, anywhere, any place.
He's the worst president in the history of our country.
The Biden campaign won't commit to a debate just yet, saying that's a conversation we'll have at the appropriate time, and urging Mr. Trump to watch the State of the Union. After tonight's address, the Biden campaign is planning a travel blitz to battleground states in the coming weeks, Savannah.
All right, Gabe, thank you. I want to turn to Kristen Welker, moderator of Meet the Press. Kristen, good morning to you. So the president has two challenges tonight. State of the Union is about policy. What do you want to do if you get a second term? But also about performance, how he appears and how Americans assess him.
Savannah, that's absolutely right. In fact, the performance is going to be as important as the policy tonight. Look, he is going to make a case for why there should be another 4 years of Joe Biden. We've heard him in recent weeks really focus on why voters shouldn't vote for Trump. Tonight, the focus is about him. I've been talking to outside allies who say, look, he's got to do more than just deliver a list. He's got to tell a story about the Biden presidency. I expect he will do that. But to your point about the performance aspect of this, Savannah, look, these are two candidates who are seniors. We know that. But if you look at the polls, voters express more concerns about president's age and ability to serve another 4 years. So he's got to show that fight that we saw in Gabe's piece. We know the White House is preparing for it. We also know Speaker Johnson has urged his conference to show restraint tonight. But will they listen, given that we're in the middle of this fraught re-election campaign, Savannah?
Yeah, I think we saw some hecklers last year. We'll see how that plays out in the chamber. Let's talk about the Republican response. I think you reported that there had been a moment where former President Trump was considering doing it himself. Who is going to deliver that Republican response?
That's right. Former President Trump had talked a little bit about it, and his team, I think, decided the stakes probably not right for him to do that. So Alabama Senator Katie Britt, a 42-year-old mom, is going to be delivering the response. This is notable. She will talk about IVF, what you were just talking about with Laura, that fight. She'll try to appeal to suburban women voters, those all-important voters, straddle that line also between this Trump re-election campaign, and also making the case that Republicans do favor expanding reproductive rights. But Savannah, this has been a real challenge for Republicans. We've seen it in past elections. Can they find a way to talk about this issue that is so galvanizing for voters?
All right, Kristen, thank you. And of course, we will bring you live coverage of tonight's State of the Union and the Republican response. We get started at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific here on NBC. And of course, on NBC News Now and NBCnews.com as well.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.